Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lots of very interesting updates, very interesting changes on the ground, so let's start. But before we start discussion all these things, I would like to share with you the article and the post that was published by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Syrsky. He admitted the failure of the Kursk adventure. One of the goals of the Kursk operation was precisely to divert Russian forces from the Pokrovsk direction. The Russians understand this, so they continue to concentrate efforts on the Pokrovsk direction, he said. So let's move to the South Donetsk area, because this is obviously a part of the Pokrovsk offensive operation, where the Russians managed to improve their position significantly. If you remember, just yesterday we were talking that the Russians launched an offensive to the west of Pavlovka, and today we got some changes from pro-Ukrainian mappers. As a result of offensive, the Russians took under control these fields. So for now it's nothing special, just they maintain the line of combat contact and go as close as possible to the city, to the village of Prichistovka. So now the Russians have few options. First, they can continue moving in the western direction towards the village of Prichistovka, not from the eastern side, but of course from the Novomayorskaya side, because if we increase the numbers of days since the beginning of August, we can see that this part was under very heavy fire, so the Russians were clearing this territory. And if we increase the numbers of days since the beginning of July, the number of updates is much bigger. So now we understand that Prichistovka is one of the targets of Russian armed forces, and most likely they will continue attack exactly in this direction. Furthermore, nothing can stop the Russians to continue moving further in the northern direction and to try to encircle Ugledar and to attack the strongholds and the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine from the west of the stronghold. Now let's talk about the Vadiana South Donbass coal mine. According to different mappers, the Russians managed to improve their positions in this direction as well, and the Russians got as close as possible. Probably during the next few days they will make first attempts to answer the coal mine itself, and if the Russians are able to do this, then we can start counting days when the Ukrainians will be forced to fall back from Ugledar. Now let's talk about Konstantinovka. The Russians captured the village a few days ago, and most likely the Ukrainians still have their positions inside of the Garden Association Shakhtar, and the Russians are moving towards these positions of the armed forces of Ukraine as well. During the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainian sources published the video of how they were bombing and attacking the Russian forces who were moving through the fields. In this video we can see how the Ukrainians were attacking the Russians along this tree line. So now we see that the Russians are trying to maintain the line of combat contact, to maintain the gray zone, and to get as close as possible to the road TO424, TO524 from between the cities of Pobeda and Paraskevka. So everything here the Russians are planning to establish complete control over during the next few days of clashes. So it's like normal activity, just to maintain the gray zone and to start the begin offensive towards Katerinovka and Antonovka most likely. Now let's move to the Pokrovsk direction, where the Ukrainians suffer significant problems. And let's start from Selydove. We have a lot of icons, as you can see, and most of them are the icons of a flag, which confirms additional progress of the armed force of Russian Federation. Some of these flags were confirmed by videos and geolocations, some of them were confirmed by different mappers, and some of them were reported by different more or less reliable sources. So let's start from the confirmed information. In this video we can see the Russian flag that they managed to raise in the industrial zone inside of the coal mine of Russia, and this video confirms complete control over this territory. So during the previous days we got just reports and updates, and we got some videos that confirmed the Russian presence or the Russian attacks, and now we see complete control over the territory. Furthermore, I would like to point your attention to the city of Selydove itself. So there was a few seconds when the Russian drone shown the Selydove itself. So let's take a look once again. This is it. As you can see, there are a lot of fire anomalies on the territory of the city, which confirms that the clashes are already taking place exactly in this area, and mainly in the eastern part of the city. So according to the fire anomalies, the fire took place exactly in this territory of Mikhailovka and the territory of Selydove, so somewhere here. Now let's move further. We have another video, and in this video we can see the Russian drone that was flying above the Terikon, west hip of Russia, and he was flying very slow, trying to show the Russian flag, and the Ukrainians try to destroy the Russian flag, as I understand. So, and this video confirms control not just over the industrial zone, but over the landfill as well. Now let's talk about different mappers report. According to pro-Ukrainian sources, the Russians managed to establish complete control over the eastern part of Novomikhailivka. This territory was captured, so that's why we have colored this area as a contested area. Also, according to Deep State, we see a very big gray zone. Now let's talk about the pro-Russian sources reports. According to pro-Russian sources, the Russians established complete control over the street of Mira. This is Mira Street. This territory was captured by the Russians. Furthermore, according to pro-Russian sources, they managed to establish complete control over the Vostochная Street. So this is Vostochная Street, this is it. Also, according to pro-Russian sources, they managed to establish complete control over Krynichная Street, and this is Krynichная Street, this is it. And it's like step by step how the situation was developing during the night. And by the morning, we got some summary from all these updates. So according to information we have, the Russians managed to almost reach the Staliona River and the territory of high-rise building, territory of the city of Selydove. Furthermore, we have some mappers changes, some updates of pro-Russian mappers. So summarizing everything, we can make a conclusion that by the beginning of the 29th of August, the Russians were already controlling something like this. Obviously, significant progress. We see that Ukrainians show no resistance, and most likely during the day we're going to receive additional changes, additional updates, and most likely during the upcoming day the Russians will try to fight for the high-rise building area in the central part of Selydove. If the Russians are able to take this territory under control, then the Ukrainians will be forced to fall back. Furthermore, some pro-Russian sources reported that Ukrainians have already begun withdrawing process and they have already started running away from the city. As for Novogrodovka, today pro-Ukrainian mappers confirmed control over another landfill. So the Russian sources confirmed control over this landfill and the coal mine, and the Ukrainian sources just today confirmed control over this territory. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russian forces, the first Russian assault troopers and sabotage and reconnaissance group, managed to enter the city of Mirnograd and to establish complete control over this part of the high-rise building area. So the Russians decided not to fight for every single building from the south to the north. They managed to, let's say, conduct a powerful breakthrough with the sabotage and reconnaissance group with the special forces, and now the Russians established complete control over this block of high-rise buildings. And they will try to hold this territory until the main forces comes to the southern part of Mirnograd. So this is the tactics, this is the situation. Obviously, the situation is very critical for the Ukrainians. The civilians of Ukraine, of the Pokrovsk, began total exodus. It's not like evacuation, it's complete exodus. We see lots of people, lots of buses, lots of volunteers of Ukraine who were trying to help these people, these civilians, to evacuate from Pokrovsk towards more reliable territories, towards the peaceful life. Maybe they will return back, but the sources are saying that Ukrainians are not planning to fall back from Pokrovsk, and the Ukrainians, according to information we have, Syrsky decided and Zelensky confirmed that they're going to fight for the Pokrovsk direction, for Pokrovsk, for the city of Pokrovsk, and the Ukrainians will not leave this area until they reduce every single building till ruins. So Pokrovsk will face the destiny and the story of Bakhmut, of Avdiivka, of Marinka, of Vovchansk. So they will fight till the last, and the city will be ruined, and this is obviously. Now let's move further. We have additional updates from the Toretsk agglomeration. The Russians managed to improve their positions. We have some geolocations. The Russians are about to finish the battle for Druzhba. We have another video published by the 32nd Mechanized Brigade of how they were FPV droning the Russian forces in this part of the city, and based on this video we have adjusted the map in Russian favor. Different mappers, including pro-Ukrainian, reported about additional progress of the armored force of Russian Federation to the north of the prison. So as you can see, the Russians decided not to storm the prison itself, but they decided to move, let's say, a little bit to the north and to cut the main supply lines that goes to the prison. As soon as they manage to do this, either the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back, or the Russians will just take this stronghold under siege. Now let's move further. As for Chasiv Yar, nothing. As for the Sivers direction, also nothing. And now very interesting updates are coming from the northern Kupiansk direction. Today, the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to establish complete control over the village of Stelmakhivka. The village was not just captured by the Russians, but also completely secured, and now the Ukrainians are going to face the biggest problems ever in the northern Kupiansk direction as well, because not just Stelmakhivka was captured by the Russians during the previous 24 hours. According to information we have, the Russians managed to establish almost complete control over the village of Synkivka. The clashes and the battle for this village started in the beginning of this year, probably in the last year. The Russians were suffering significant losses, have been suffering significant losses during the battle, but now we see that they managed to advance a lot and they captured a lot of territories, a lot of streets. This Russian flag was geolocated exactly in this point, but maybe the Russians managed to move even further. We don't know for sure, so that's why we have adjusted the map just along this building where the Russians raised the flag. So the battle for the Kursk for the Kupiansk has also started, and we see very bad situation for the Ukrainians. The Russians are moving to Oskol from Peshchane. The Russians now will start moving to Oskol from Stelmakhivka. The next village is Lazova. So something bad is happening while the Ukrainians continue their concentration of forces in the Kursk area. During the previous 24 hours, during the previous night, nothing was, let's say, even a single progress was discovered, even a single progress wasn't discovered on the territory of the Kursk offensive operation. So just losses, more losses that were published from Russian sources. The Russians destroyed more vehicles, additional personnel carriers, so the Ukrainians continue losing their best soldiers, because according to information we have, the Ukrainians started their massive mobilization in May, and everything that they managed to mobilize they sent to Pokrovsk with the purpose to hold the lines, and that those were obviously unprofessional soldiers without experience. And the most experienced army, the Ukrainians decided to concentrate in the Kursk direction with the purpose to capture as many as possible. And now we see that either the best army of Ukraine is basically destroying in the Kursk direction, while the Russians destroying the worst army ever in the Pokrovsk direction. So as you can see, the Ukrainians made a lot of mistakes, and now they're going to pay for every single mistake they did during the previous few months. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.